also backtrack a little, tell people, just a little something about yourself. And,
yeah, sure.
But then get back to that because I think it's
yeah, I agree that there's a parallel there or a crossover. I think my practice I started by studying ceramics. So actually I did a lot of ceramics and sculpture, and sculpture has informed my painting, but I've always been a painter, that's what my first love is. But I tend to walk around paintings a lot in my mind, and so it informs it in that way. And also I use alternative surfaces, like I went to a plastic, a few years of using industrial materials and surfaces, alternate surfaces, so black concrete as underlay, or what they lay for industrial, for gardening and concreting. Use that, wanted to experiment with that and stretch that, and use that for quite a while. And that's actually when I started to see things emerge, because it was almost like not a photographic process, but it was almost like having a negative there. And and it was influenced as well by my various learnings through life. And so I started with ceramics, and then I went to painting, and I also didn't have a kiln anymore. And that influenced it. But practicality. There's nothing like taking all your hard-earned greenware to a place to get it all broken. But I found that I studied art therapy, so I went and I did my master's in that, and I did a thesis which was quite in-depth, and that's where I really learnt how my process as an artist about myself, and I really looked into integral theory, which is Ken Wilber in the 90s. That was kind of big, and he was very much about looking at a holistic, all theories in one sort of format, and so intellectually that informed me. I was also starting to meditate and look at life differently and explore different spiritualities, which I'd already sort of done through other studies, Asian studies and whatnot. So it all kind of combines, I guess, on the journey as an artist. But when I was doing the plastic work, I had a solo exhibition in Brisbane, and I did a whole lot of little works quite quickly, and they were almost spontaneous, And I didn't actually see things in them, but people, when I put them up on large-scale installations, like 100 of them at a time or whatever, or some of them, people would see angels and things in there that I hadn't really noticed, And it was really interesting. It was a bit of a discovery for me. So then around that time I was also doing my thesis, so I actually started really dialoguing with my artwork. And that was a process, like a heuristic sort of process that I got involved with, and I almost like had to defer to the painting. What do you want to be, almost? Like where we're going, because I don't know. I would have abstract themes of what I wanted to work on, but I have never really been, I've always been open to the alchemy, because I came, through ceramics, and things come out of the kiln not quite like you expect. So, you've got to pray to the kiln gods, but sometimes they don't really look after your work, and it comes out very differently, which can be really amazing as well. But I have sort of let go of an expectation of an idea that I have in my head is going to be reproduced on a canvas. And so I've opened up more and more throughout my practice, and I guess what I really try to do is explore particularly with the mapping ones that I did. I was fortunate to get an artist residency at Manor last year for 3 months, and it happened very quickly actually. And so things aligned, which was great, and I felt very supported by that. And I was able to make a lot of work, because I've also had time off from my practice when, I've become an art therapist, or I've worked in community, or I've developed the Brisbane Art Prize and ran that, and that was all consuming. And so sort of to get back to my practice this time around, and to look at sort of my interior and exterior landscape, as an artist in residence in a different country was really interesting. And so I really wanted to, I started looking into the maps, and I was interested in Manners history, the building, and the fact that it had been a cigarette factory, and that was really quite interesting. So I went and, you know, did some research around maps, and then I thought, you know, I could use them, and I sort of placed them, you know, a bit randomly. But the backgrounds, the way that I usually work is by laying colour and having an abstract idea, or not so abstract, but an interest in exploring my surrounds at the time, and that's internally as well as externally. So I'm looking at my interior, my exterior landscape, and I really sort of believe that it comes from the subconscious to the self-conscious, and then to a superconscious. You know?
Yes.
That's sort of how I've seen my work develop.
And I love the way that there's been this sort of dialectic between sort of your your artistic expression, both of you, and life. It's like, oh, life is taking over now. I'm going to do that for a while, and then jump back into. And you know, you were asking me, what am I doing for my own creativity? It's always, I think, you know, a sort of a back and forth, because you can be creative and do your art for a while, but then what are you doing? At a certain point, like, what are you making art about, right? It has to be about something, so you have to have a life that you're living, right, to do the work about. But then sometimes it's not like, I'm gonna go live life so I can do art. It's just like life imposes itself. And then it's interesting to see how that expresses itself through both of your work.
I think the stimulus of the different things that you go and do informs your practice.
Yes.
It has for me.
Yeah, for sure.